Now, when you know approximately what quality of the image you need to achieve, we can work on equipment, understanding what you will need. In this video, I'm going to tell you which equipment to purchase, but in case you want to do something on budget for yourself, DIY video is going to follow this video. But still you need to watch it to understand what equipment is there on the market, and if you don't have opportunity to buy equipment, you will need to understand what kind of environment you will need to create. There are many different sets of equipment, and of course the better equipment, the better quality of the image you can achieve. And also the better equipment, more time you may save with using this equipment, so you don't need to do a lot of adjustments along the way when you have professional equipment, let's say, or close to professional. But it's quite pricey, very expensive professional, so there is a lot of equipment on the market that is medium or lower price. You don't need to have high-end equipment for a good image. For example, in my setup, I have everything necessary to just turn on the button and to start recording. And that's what you have to strive for. You need to strive to save your time, which is the most important thing in your life. You need to ensure that you don't spend time on setup every time you need to record. The setup has to be easy, and all equipment has to help you to save your time. Because the most time we usually spend on preparation. Recording on itself is not that time consuming. So let's start talking about the light. In the previous lesson you have learned about 3-point lighting, which means the lighting from 3 different sources, 3 different points. And depending on the image you want to achieve, you will need to decide which kind of lighting setup you want to have. So if you want to have dramatic look, as I have explained in previous video, you will need one key light. You can use the key light will need to be not in front of you but on the side, so that on the side you can have a reflector, something that will reflect the image, which is not equipment. It's just like material that is reflecting the light. And you will have this way 2 lights for this setup, and on the background you can have any lamp you want, because if it's not lighting your face, it doesn't really matter. So that's the simplest setup you may have. If you want to have a standard 3-point setup, then you will need to have light, which is key light, and the fill light, which I don't have now because I have moved it here for you to see the equipment when I will need it. So to manage all these sources, to place them in proper angles, everything that you need to do is to have stands. You need to have how you will hold those materials that will reflect the light if you will choose to go this way. And we're going to talk about this in this video, including the sound and microphone that you will need. So the light source. Before purchasing the light, you need to understand what lights there are out and what do you choose from and which features those lights have and how do you differentiate one light from another. And we will focus on 2 types of light, which is fluorescent light and LED lights. So we are going to focus on these 2 types, and I will compare these 2 lights. So there is no only one better option. In both options there are pros and cons, which we will discuss, and you will make a decision out of this discussion. So number 1 difference between LED light and fluorescent light is that fluorescent light is heated a lot. Not that a lot, but in comparison to the LED light, it's going to be heating. And usually the set of for example, light that you will use for key light, it will have 4 bulbs, fluorescent bulbs minimum, for you to light properly the scene. So it means you will have your lamp heating with 4 bulbs. The temperature going to drop as soon as you will turn off the lights, so it's cooling down very fast. But at the same time, if you are living in the hot country, if you don't have a well-conditioned room, you might think that this is not going to be a good option for you because of the heating. LED light generates way less heat. Next property is power consumption. Of course, the fluorescent light consumes more power, so it means that you have to have it sticked in the power source, whereas LED light can be lit with the battery. It depends on which LED light you have, but mostly LED light can be working with battery for some time, which is good for some cases. I didn't put these properties in some kind of order because there is nothing more important than another. So I'm just listing everything that you will question yourself when you will be choosing. So the cost of LED light for you to light properly might be bigger, higher, because the LED light is not as strong as the fluorescent light. So you might need to have a larger surface of this light to have it stronger. You might need to have a few lamps or few panels you might need. So let me demonstrate one LED light. For example, this LED light, I think like 9 centimeters by 6 centimeters is not too large. So this will not be enough for you to light the scene. You will struggle with improperly lit face, and you will need few lights like this to come just from one side to be able to light properly this scene. And of course you will use also diffuser, because these diffusers that are here available, these small diffusers, they are not doing the job properly. So when I was recording the previous video and I removed my umbrella, you could see that the light was very harsh, although I had this diffuser, so it doesn't do a lot of job. So you will need to have at least 2 like this to light just one source, the key lighting. Here you have a bigger panel. You see how many times it is bigger. This is the bigger panel, and this is the panel that I have now. I'm using for my key light. It lights well, but this is quite old already model. It's not there on many times. You can find that it's out of stock, although the price, because it's old model, it is affordable, but it has a good lighting. You can use this one or any other LED light that has the similar large surface or even bigger surface, but it still doesn't mean that you will direct the light on you, because we will cover later that one of the properties of the LED light is that it is directed on you and it's not distributed in the atmosphere like fluorescent light. Also, another difference between the LED light and fluorescent light bulb is that fluorescent light, it might be flickering. It definitely flickers at the beginning when you just open it, and it depending on the quality. If you buy low-end fluorescent light that costs approximately $6, then you will find that it's flickering and it's not good for recording. You want to avoid this. Of course, if you buy the fluorescent bulb that is at the top, like 24 for example, or even $20 or $17, you will find that it's much better quality. When we talk about the LED light doesn't flicker at all, so it's a good feature of the LED light. Now, talking about the weight, if you are moving for example from town to town, or your job is connected to moving, you know that you will change places, then maybe having fluorescent light, because it comes also with the socket that will hold this fluorescent light. It's not that compact, it's not that mobile, and also it's light bulbs, so you can see that in sockets there are light bulbs and you cannot just pack it. Whereas this is just like a book. You pack it just like a book and it's ready to be used as soon as you have it. Of course, the light bulbs with these 4 sockets for fluorescent light will be more heavy than this. The color temperature for the LED light, there is a possibility always to adjust the color temperature. So you can see it from my key light that I can lower it, I can increase it, and it's usually with every light. Like this light is also it has the possibility to increase, decrease the light. It usually refers to the LED light, where with fluorescent bulbs, what you can do, you can turn off some of the bulbs, and this way you can regulate the brightness and the temperature. And now we came to the light direction. The LED lights, they are strictly directed where you direct, so it's easy to manage it in this way, but you need to have a large surface of LED light for you to cover with this straight light everything you need. Whereas with the fluorescent light is omnidirectional, which means that is directed like a sun, you know, to different sides, and it fills the room more. Therefore, it has softer light because of this. You will still need to have diffuser with the fluorescent light, but it's even without diffuser, it already lights more of the surface of the scene. I'm working fine with LED light, but these panels work for me well because of the diffuser and the reflection that I have. Typically, when you buy the light like this, you will be able to find very easily the way to place it on the mount. So you have, this is the stand, and this stand has the mount that allows you to mount this light over here and mount anything additionally if you want. I have here also the umbrella. My light is directed to the umbrella and it returns a little bit wider light rate. There is a property that is called CRI, color rendering index, and in this case the fluorescent light might not have the same capabilities as LED light. Lifespan of the LED light is longer, obviously. As we said, portability of the LED light is bigger because it is more compact and more lightweight. Durability of the fluorescent lamp is lower because it can break. If you drop it, it can be more easily distracted, but it's light, you will be careful with this. When we are talking about fluorescent light bulb, it shifts a little bit the color temperature due to aging, which is not happening with the LED light. And of course, if you are environmentally aware, then LED light has no toxic elements as the fluorescent light has. And also fluorescent light is less energy efficient from this perspective. So I hope these things help you to make a decision. Basically, the main thing that you are focusing on is the cost, the image you want to have, and additional things that you will need to have to support this light. As we said, the stand for light for LED light can be cheaper because it is lighter. You don't need that strong stand. But when we talk about fluorescent light, if you are going to use the 4 light bulbs, the socket that will hold it, then you need a more strong stand for it where you will mount it. So there are other expenses, other things you need to consider. So about light stands and mounts, what do you need to know? The light stands usually are very tall. Light stands are like this. They have tripod at the end of it, but it's not called tripod, it's light stand. It also has at the ending the specific connection to mount here things. Whereas in tripod, the connector is a little bit different when we are talking about tripod. So this is not tripod, don't mix it up with the tripod. Another difference is that it's not that stable. You see it's moving. You cannot have the tripod with your camera moving like that. First of all, for your camera, and secondly, even if you are recording on your phone, you want to have stable image. You don't want it to be moving. Whereas if you passed and have touched slightly the lights and it's shaking, there is no problem with this because it doesn't affect your image that much. Now you can see that I have the ring light over here. Ring light is this is also a LED light, so it has all properties of LED light, but the surface of this LED light is very small, so you cannot use it as a key light. It's not enough. So with this surface, there are bigger ring lights. They are like, you know, the bigger surface over here, so they might work for you as the key light because they are much brighter, but you will need to put them close to you, so there will be maybe issues with diffusion. Maybe you will need to think about how to arrange this, and you will definitely need to have a second fill light when you are using the key light like a ring, but it can work, but not with this ring. This ring is only for fill light. You can only fill, or you could see on the previous video that I have used this for backlight, and even for backlight it was not strong enough for backlight. So as far it is from your face, as less job it does. So even just 1 meter from you, it cannot light anymore. So those ring lights are very cheap. They cost about $20, but you have to understand that they are not good investment. Another thing with these lights is that here, this mount head is not gonna be holding well, because usually when you are paying for a good tripod, you will find very good mount head there, but this one is going to make you troubles. For example, if you want to mount on this stand something on some kind of angle, it's not gonna hold. So if I will put this on some kind of angle, you will see that it's falling little by little, because it's not possible to hold. You don't want to buy cheap things, or if you buy cheap things because you need to start, with something on budget, then you need to understand the issues you will be facing. Then the height of this cheap stand, it is 1.5 meters, maybe 170 meters. But still, when we are talking about the light, you need to understand that you need to have light higher than your head, little bit higher over your head. Like this light is I think like so much higher than my head, and the light falls with the proper angle, and I'm sitting. And if I would be standing like I was recording before, I was standing, my lights were higher than me. So if I am 1 meter 80 centimeters, it means that my light have to be higher than 2 meters, and this one is definitely higher. It's like about 3 meters. The other one is lower, but when you are buying the stand for your lights, it has to be high. And as higher your light stand, you need to ensure the base is wide so that it can hold it. Usually you don't have many problems with the light stand. The most challenges you would have with finding a good tripod on the budget. Now let's talk about soft boxes, reflectors and diffusers. So I have shown you yesterday the diffuser. It was an umbrella with the white fabric that is a little bit transparent, so that the light goes through it and it lights my face, but it distributes the light also. It doesn't go directly to my face, it distributes the light around, and it makes the distribution of lighting a little bit more even all over the face and me. Whereas there is a reflector like this. This is a different umbrella, and the task of this umbrella is to reflect the light that goes inside here, reflect on the object. But reflectors can be used in other way. You don't have to have necessarily umbrella. There are reflectors that you can see on the screen right now, and you can open them, and anytime you have the key light lighting on you, you can have from another side the reflector that will catch the same light and direct it also to you to fill the shadows as a fill light. So you can use reflectors in case you don't have opportunity to buy a fill light, or as a reflector you can use other things that we will discuss in other video for DIY. I will explain how you can make a reflector if you want, but it's also easy to buy, and they are not very expensive. Reflectors, diffusers, and even the black material absorbers, because sometimes you don't want to have some reflections from the light like from another side, then you use the absorber, which will be black material. For example, if you have a white wall, then you would want to hide it. If you would want to hide it, you would use this absorber. If you decide to buy a soft box for your light, especially if you are going to have the fluorescent light, you will need to have a soft box. But you need to understand that soft boxes usually are expensive because the fluorescent bulb will be heating. So all this construction, it has to have air, it has to have a possibility to cool down the whole system. So most probably it's going to be a little bit expensive to buy good soft box. Note that when you are searching for the soft boxes, then you will face a lot of advertisement with soft boxes that look like a good soft box, large soft box, but when you see description, you find that the diagonal, the surface of this soft box is very small. These soft boxes are for photography of some products that are very small, like maybe a ring or bracelet, but it's not for lighting the human being. So if you want to buy a soft box for you, which is also the opportunity for you, you have to look for 60 to 90 centimeters on diagonal, which is 24 or 36 inches. Yeah, this has to be the surface of your softbox. It will be quite large. So that's why I'm using umbrella, because umbrella is also in diagonal, is about 90 centimeters, and it does like approximately the same job. And because I have the LED light which is directed on me, and we said that the LED light is not that distributed as the fluorescent light is distributed, I'm not afraid that the light will be lighting all the room and the light will be reflecting from everywhere, because it's directed just on me and umbrella captures it and distributes it. So in case you want to go for fluorescent light, you will need to decide between the soft box or maybe umbrella. And you can see I've shown you that umbrella is mounted. Usually there is a way to mount the umbrella, yeah, and it suits more the LED light which is directed. So if you will go for fluorescent, you will need to think of the soft box. You either buy it or you do it on your own. You have to make these decisions on your own by comparing all things. For my own setup, for you to understand what I'm using two similar like these panels. I'm using one panel with the reflector, which is sitting there as the fill light. I'm using the key light, which is closer to me. It is with umbrella, same panel. I'm using this sometimes, and it's working for me as the backlight, is a rim light, and it's like on the side. Sometimes I'm using this one to have very slight light, because if it's not that close, if it's just 1 meter, is almost not noticeable that is there. It has a very little light in here. And I'm not using reflectors in any other way, because I think this is enough for me. But if I would need reflectors, I would need to have also somewhere to connect where do I put the reflector. So I have, from this side, I have curtains, so I could add reflectors on the curtains if I would choose this model, and I would need to have clips to connect the reflector. So these clips are very cheap, so they are plastic, they are holding well. There are different sizes of those. You can purchase them somewhere and use them to attach your reflectors, your diffusers to different objects in your house, so that you don't buy more stands for it. Let us go into sound and see what options do we have for sound. So as with the light, we have few options for sound. We can have the sound which is captured by lavalier, which is like that, the one I have. We can have sound which is a shotgun, you can see on the screen, and we can have a tabletop microphone. And let us talk about the features that they have that will help you to decide. So starting with the size, obviously the size of this is much compact. The shotgun is gonna be placed near your camera somewhere, most probably directed on you, because it captures the sound in the specific direction, whereas this microphone is capturing sound a little bit like around, in front of the microphone and around. And the tabletop microphone can be different. The name stands for itself. The table microphone would be on the table, standing here, and of course that's the biggest microphone you would have. It's bigger than shotgun and bigger than this one. Now let's talk about directionality. Omnidirectional microphone is microphone that captures the sound around in different directions. There are also cardioid microphones. Cardioid microphones are capturing the sound from, like if this would be a microphone and this would be reception of the sound, it would capture the sound in the form of heart, like this. So that's why it's called cardioid. It's from Greek word cardio, which is heart. It's in the form of heart. So this microphone captures the sound around me here. Okay, it's not capturing anything that is happening over there or over there, just here around. If we are talking about the shotgun is directional and is directed. That's why it's called shotgun. It's like shooting with the, it's like sensing the sound in the specific direction, like shooting. And you will find that there are supercardioid and hypercardioid microphones like this. And then a tabletop microphone can be omnidirectional, so that you can use it to talk with different people and their sound is captured in the same microphone. Or those microphones can be having boundary effects, which is going to be capturing the sound like in front of the speaker. Now, when we talk about mounting, how these microphones are attached, this microphone has a clip that is attached to the closest, and sometimes you have a pin that helps you to attach. And the shotgun microphone, we are talking about the shotgun that is used for the recording of head talking videos, like this one that I am doing. So in this case, the shotgun will be placed somewhere on the camera, next to the camera, on special mount that is also shock resistant, and the tabletop microphone will be placed on the table on its own stand or tripod. Or there can be like arm which will be holding this microphone. Obviously this microphone is more portable, more easier to transfer from the place to place, same as shotgun, but this one you can put in the pocket in case you need to move. There is something to consider. If you are doing recordings outside, then you will need to have wind protection. If you are recording on somewhere in the nature, in the forest, in the garden, then you will need to have wind protection. But we are not planning to have this kind of videos, I think, for our project. So it doesn't matter so much if your microphone will have wind protection. But for you to understand what wind protection is the foam protector. You could see something like sponge on this camera's foam protector, or there can be a protector that is called dead cat, and this protector is like fur that helps to protect the sound from the wind. Important to understand the coverage area. So we were talking about directionality, where the sensor is directed to, and there is also a coverage area, how far this sensor goes to capture the sound. So this lavalier is medium range. It cannot capture sounds very far. The shotgun can have a long distance capturing depending on the quality of this shotgun, and a tabletop microphone is designed for the room so that it can capture the sound from the room. It also depends on the specs. Now the prices. Generally the lavalier are affordable. The prices for lavalier starts from $6 and goes till $30, something like that, maybe $50, and it depends which frequency this lavalier has. It depends on brand. It depends also, is it connected to the little bass that allows you to have this like a wireless microphone, so you have bass on you and you have bass on camera that is transferring the sound to the camera. But my lavalier is just sticked in here in my phone. Very simple connection. You don't need to set up anything, just plug and play. That's it. So usually lavalier are like this, and the price for mine is about $20. That's like medium range price, and the quality is quite good, but it's not going to work for too long. You need to understand that you are putting in, putting out, taking it out, and eventually, like everything, it can break, and usually it doesn't last too long because of this manipulation all the time. But with the shotgun and the tabletop microphone is much easier because you don't pull it all the time. you don't use it in the same way. So in my case, after 1 year or something like that, approximately, you will need to change it. You most probably will need to change it because it will not last for too long. Now we will talk about frequency response, just for you to understand that there are different frequency responses. And what does it stand for? It stands for which range of sounds your microphone can capture. And usually the lavalier has frequency response from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. This is the sounds that human ear can hear. But you don't need, for talking head videos, to have such a large range. So sometimes you will find that lavalier range is from 50 to 10,000 Hz. And you might think that it's not very large frequency range, but it's okay, because human voice has frequency range which is typically from 85 to 255 Hz. So you understand that your range is enough for this microphone to capture this range, unless you will be singing very high notes. And that's for male. For female is 166 Hz to 255 Hz. Sometimes on the microphone you will see the sensitivity of the microphone, and it's basically stands for which is the output of the microphone, and you will find out that there is something like -40 Hertz, and then you will see +-3 or +-2. This is okay setting. This means what is the deviation from what the microphone is capturing in comparison to what it records as a result. You will have a vocabulary under this video so that you can see everything that I was talking about and the comparison tables, so you can go through it and read it in more details. The vocabulary has the explanation of different terminologies, like what is frequency range, cardioid microphone means, what omnidirectional microphone means, or for example the connectivity of microphone, which microphone is connected, like mine with the 3.5mm jack, or maybe USB, like what is better. Both of them are connected to the phone. Obviously the ones that are connected to the phone with USB has to be connected through converter. But if I would buy lavalier, I wouldn't go into buying something with USB. I would just go with the 3.5mm jack. And there is another connectivity option, XLR, which means that these are those microphones that are connected on the stage you could see with this huge connector. So you obviously don't need it for your home setup. Your options: either you connect your microphone to PC and you record with USB and it's going to be tabletop microphone, or you can have a shotgun, and shotgun most probably will have a 3.5mm jack, and lavalier will have also the same connector. Also in this terminology dictionary you will find explanation of what is dynamic microphone or condenser microphone. Usually when we're talking about YouTube content, everyone is buying condenser microphone. The dynamic microphones are good to capture high and very loud sounds, but for the sounds that for the details that need to be captured in the normal setting in the room when you are talking, the condenser microphone is the best for this. So when you will be buying microphone, you will see that it is condenser microphone. Let me come back a little bit to the tripods and mounts for camera. So the tripod for camera usually is going to be up to 120 or maybe 150 centimeters. As higher is the tripod and as more stable it is, as higher is the price. So higher your tripod, higher is the price. And usually on your height you will not be able to find the tripod in $50 that is going to be also stable. Maybe you can, so you need to search, but usually it's not the case. So what you will do, you will just buy a good tripod that you can put on the table, and it's not going to be on the same table that you are sitting and having your PC, but maybe another table a little bit far, and or some kind of surface that is stable, and you can have there your tripod, which is going to be perfect. And if you want to stand and record, this also will work for you. So the 120 centimeter tripod will work for you if you want to sit and talk. But you remember that the camera has to be on the eye level all the time. So other option is to have the tripod on the table or hard surface somewhere where it can be a little bit far. Another option would be a simple table tripod as well. This is a table tripod, and it has this selfie stick connected. So I'm using this selfie stick, and I can lower or make it higher, and then there is a mount. How do I hold my phone? So my phone will be sitting here and I will be recording. I can put the tablet, I can put the phone, and I will be recording, and also I will be able to change the angle if I need to here. Usually we don't want to record from high angle or from low angle, yeah, but in case you will need to change the angle for some reason, like you want to show something on your table, for example, like this is gonna work. So you need to ensure that your head over here is strong enough, is a good quality stick, and it has a good mount over here. How do you understand if the mount is good? Usually through trial and error, and maybe by going to the different shops and touching and seeing how it's done. So if it looks cheap to you, it's not going to hold well. Another way is to buy a good equipment that has the higher price tag, but at the same time it is known brand and good quality. And how to know if it's good brand for something like for tripods or for lights or for anything else you will use is to go to search engine and search like best budget, for example, best budget lights, LED lights. You already know that it can be LED lights or can be fluorescent lights, and by doing this search you can find the specs, you can find the details and description of each product. And you can take these details into ChatGPT and say, this is the details, and I want to record the talking head videos for YouTube, for short content, and I need you to analyze if these specs work for me. So ChatGPT can analyze and tell you what's working and what's better if it's not working. It's not going to tell you exactly what is the model, but it will tell you which specs to look for. And the last one, I will talk about the backdrop. So the backdrop I have is a fabric. When you have a backdrop, you need to ensure the following things. It has to have even color. You don't want to have a colorful backdrop, especially for shorts and reels, because it's destructive, but you can have if you want. I'm thinking that the plain color is the best. Now, when we're talking about the color, you have to avoid using the light blue, I mean bright navy blue, and avoid using green. Those colors are for different purposes, so you don't use them. You can use blue, but not that blue. The surface of the material, the surface of the fabric should be matte. It shouldn't be shiny, it shouldn't be reflecting, because your light will be reflecting. It's not going to be good. So it has to be absorbing the light, so the texture should be matte. When you are buying the fabrics, you just need to look at it on the light like this and see if it's reflecting. It shouldn't be. Then the density of this material, it should be thick. It shouldn't be light like silk or something like this. It has to be thicker, like if it would be for a suit, the material for a suit. So it will not make wrinkles and waves for you. You will not have problem with how this material is aligned, because it has to be straight. That is why we're not using curtains, because curtains, they are wavy. We don't want any waves, because it will be capturing the light and the shadows. Is not going to look good unless you don't want a backdrop, and if you want to work just with your normal room setup, you will need to learn to light your room properly and to work with the composition on the background. So it's gonna be a different video, not in this series of videos, because we're working here with the backdrop. So I have experience of working with colorful backdrops like this backdrop. So this kind of backdrops can be used, but if you can avoid using them is better, because unfortunately it has plastic in it and it cannot be ironed, so it has wrinkles, so you cannot fix it anyhow. So that's a little bit problematic. So I wouldn't advise to buy such a backdrop, which is basically a backdrop for photographers, amateurs. Now you can buy professional backdrop. Of course, it will have a specific material that does not reflect, that is light, is easy to use, but it's gonna be costing a little bit more. I think this backdrop is fine. All you need is to ensure that the size of this material is 200 centimeters, 2 meters by 1.5 meters, 150 centimeters minimum, so that when you are going to be doing YouTube videos, when they are going to be horizontal, it will work for you, and when you will be doing vertical videos, it will also work for you, because the 1.5 meter is going to be enough for the vertical video. And the last is the memory management. You need to ensure that you have enough memory. So if you are doing recording on your phone should have at least 5 gigabytes of free memory, so that you can save them few recordings, so that you don't have to stop and transfer it. It's good to have at least 5 gigabytes, but 10 even better, so that your head is not occupied with thinking of saving everything and transferring everything, because you are out of space and you cannot record anymore. But if your phone is a very low gigabyte capacity, it has like 65 gigabyte is old phone, or it is maybe 64 gigabytes capacity, then in this case you will need to have external memory, where you will go and save whatever you recorded for today. So you did a recording and then you will transfer it to your external memory, or you need to transfer it to your PC. So it all depends on which PC do you have. Do you have a card reader in your PC? Can you add to your phone a small micro SD card? So this micro SD card can be used later to transfer to your PC if it has SD card reader. It all depends on this. Otherwise, you will use the cable to transfer from your phone to your PC, or from your phone to a memory stick. You can transfer from your phone to a memory stick also directly. So to conclude, you will need to have either micro SD, so that you use it in your phone if you have a slot for it. If you can't, then you use external memory stick or external drive to transfer your recordings to this memory, either on your computer or on external drive. So this is all about equipment. In the next video I will talk about DIY hacks, what you can do to make a setup if you don't have an opportunity to purchase anything. But I would recommend you to purchase if you have the opportunity like this, because of course the good setup cannot be compared so much with DIY, but also sometimes the results of what people are doing are just amazing, you know, so maybe you will have these results. That is all for this video. You have all descriptions that you need under this video in the guide, and for any questions, reach out so that we can help you to figure out what do you do.